the soil looked fine from above. That was the problem. You watered it, fed it, gave it everything the instructions said to give it. And still, nothing moved the way it should. Leaves pale, stems thin. A garden that stopped responding no matter what was added to it. Somewhere in the back of your mind, a quiet thought settled in. Maybe the soil is just dead. It isn't dead. It's been broken. And those are two very different things. Dead means gone. Dead means starting over. Dead means the ground beneath your feet has nothing left to give. Broken means something interrupted a system that was working. Broken means the workers are still there, waiting. Broken means the minerals are still locked in the sand, the silt, the clay, waiting for the right conditions to release them. Broken can be restored. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what broke it, why it broke the way it did, and 3 specific actions used by cultures that built the most fertile soil on Earth without a single bag of synthetic fertilizer, that bring it back, not by adding more, by restoring what was always there. The soil hasn't forgotten how to be alive. It's been waiting for someone to stop interrupting it. And to understand how to remind it, you first have to understand what happened to it. Here is something soil scientists discovered that most gardening advice never caught up with. The problem was never the plant. When a garden stops producing, when leaves yellow, roots stall, and the same bed that thrived 3 seasons ago now barely sustains a single tomato, the instinct is to look upward, at the weather, at the watering schedule, at the variety of seed. But the collapse almost always begins 6 inches below the surface. Healthy soil isn't a container. It isn't a growing medium. It is a living community. 1 teaspoon holding more individual organisms than there are humans on Earth. Bacteria, fungi, protozoa, microscopic predators hunting each other in the dark, cycling nutrients in a system so precise, so efficient, that plants evolved over millions of years to depend on it completely. That system has a name. Researchers call it the soil food web, and in most backyard gardens, in most commercially farmed fields, it is broken, not dead. Broken. Studies comparing regenerative and conventional soils suggest that degraded ground maintains only 42% of its microbial activity during drought conditions. Healthy biological soil holds 78%. That gap, 36%, is the difference between a garden that survives a dry August and one that collapses by mid-July. Most gardeners have felt that gap without ever having a name for it. They blamed themselves. The weather. Bad luck. What they were actually experiencing was a soil food web quietly dismantled. By tillage, by synthetic inputs, by years of feeding the plant while starving everything underneath it. There's a reason it broke down the way it did. And once you understand it, the 3 fixes stop feeling like remedies. They start feeling like restoration. But here is where the story takes a turn most gardeners never see coming. Because the thing that broke the soil food web, the thing that dismantled that invisible living system over decades of backyard gardening, wasn't neglect. It was effort. Specifically, one kind of effort. The kind that feels most like caring for a garden. The kind that looks productive, has been passed down through generations as the first and most essential act of a serious gardener: digging. For centuries, turning the soil was considered an act of renewal. Ancient farmers did it. Modern instruction manuals still require it. The smell of freshly turned earth became so associated with fertility that most people never thought to question it. You dig because digging looks like preparation. It looks like care. It looks like the beginning of something alive. But beneath the blade, something else entirely was happening. Every time the soil is turned, roughly half of the living workforce inside it is destroyed, not scattered, not temporarily displaced. The fungal networks that spent years threading themselves through the darkness, structures thinner than a human hair, stretching silently in every direction, are severed in a single pass. The microscopic highways that carry water and minerals directly to waiting roots collapse all at once, and beneath the turned layer, the soil compacts. Oxygen disappears, and when soil loses oxygen, It doesn't go quiet. It begins to produce alcohol. At just 1 part per million, that alcohol softens root tissue, dissolves it. The plant above keeps reaching for light, drawing on whatever reserves remain, until there's nothing left to draw on. It yellows, it stalls. And the gardener, standing over it with a watering can, concludes that the soil simply needs more. More fertilizer, more turning, more effort. The cycle repeats. This is the buried truth that soil science has been quietly assembling for decades. The knowledge isn't new. Indigenous farmers in the Amazon understood it 2,000 years ago. They didn't fight the soil. They layered. They fed the surface and let the living systems underneath do the rest, building soil so fertile it still hasn't exhausted itself today. We stopped listening to the ground, and the ground, as it turns out, had been trying to tell us something the whole time, which is exactly where the 3 fixes begin. To understand what the 3 fixes actually do, you first have to see what healthy soil looks like when it's working, not the surface, underneath it. Picture a forest floor that has never been touched. No spade, no tiller, no bag of fertilizer poured from a shelf, just decades of leaves falling, decomposing, and falling again. The soil beneath that floor is dark, loose, and alive in a way that most garden beds never reach. And the reason isn't the leaves. It's what lives between them. In undisturbed soil, bacteria are the first workers. They arrive at every fragment of organic matter, a fallen leaf, a dead root, a grain of sand, and begin breaking it down, releasing the minerals locked inside. But bacteria alone don't feed plants. They hold the nutrients inside their own cells, like a warehouse that never ships its inventory. That's where the next layer begins. Protozoa and nematodes, microscopic predators, some no larger than a single cell, hunt the bacteria. They consume them in enormous numbers. And because bacteria contain far more nutrients than a protozoan actually needs, the excess gets excreted directly into the root zone, in a form the plant can absorb immediately. This is what researchers call the poop loop. It sounds unglamorous. It is in fact the most elegant nutrient delivery system ever assembled. Precise, targeted, deposited exactly where roots are waiting, at exactly the moment the plant needs it. No runoff, no waste, no guessing. But the plant isn't passive in this system. This is the part that soil science is still catching up to. Plants actively engineer their own nutrient supply. Through their roots, they release what researchers call exudates, specific recipes of sugars, proteins, and carbohydrates, each one formulated to attract a particular species of bacteria or fungi. A plant deficient in zinc releases a different recipe than a plant deficient in phosphorus. The soil responds accordingly, sending the right microbial miners to the right location. The plant isn't waiting to be fed, it's placing an order. Above the bacteria, a second network runs parallel. Fungi. Their thread-like structures, hyphae, extend far beyond what any root system could reach alone, threading through sand, silt, and clay, physically extracting minerals and delivering them back. One species of fungus, arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi, secretes a protein called glomalin, discovered only in the late 1990s, that acts as a biological glue, binding soil particles into stable clusters. Those clusters create the porous, sponge-like structure that holds water, circulates oxygen, and gives healthy soil its characteristic softness. That softness isn't cosmetic, it's structural. It's the physical evidence that the system is intact. Now, consider what happens when the spade enters. The fungal networks sever instantly. The bacterial communities scatter. The protozoa and nematodes lose their hunting grounds. The glomalin that took years to accumulate breaks apart. The soil compacts beneath the disrupted layer, oxygen disappears, and the fermentation begins, producing the alcohol that quietly dissolves the root tissue the plant depends on to drink. The poop loop stops. The plant stops receiving its order. It draws on reserves. Then it has no reserves left. And the gardener above the surface sees yellowing leaves, stalled growth, fruit that never sets, and reaches for a bag of synthetic fertilizer. whose salt content quietly dehydrates the very microbes left alive, feeding the plant directly, temporarily, while the living system underneath continues to collapse. This is what most gardeners have been experiencing. Not bad luck, not bad seed, not bad weather, a broken loop. And a loop, by its nature, can be restored. Sit with that for a moment. Every garden you've walked away from, every plant you pulled before it had a chance, every season that produced less than the one before it, none of it was inevitable. It was a loop that stopped cycling, and somewhere on this earth, that exact problem has already been solved. So, if a broken loop is what caused all of this, the yellowing, the stalling, the soil that stopped responding, no matter what was added to it, then the question that follows is a simple one. Has this ever been solved before? Not in a laboratory, not in a research paper, in a real garden, in real soil, by real people who had no synthetic fertilizer, no tiller, no bag of blue crystals from a shelf. People who had only what the land provided and the knowledge of what to do with it. The answer is yes, and it happened in one of the least expected places on Earth. Deep in the Amazon basin, where the soil should be among the least fertile on the planet. Thin, sandy, leached by centuries of tropical rain. There are patches of earth so dark and so alive that researchers who first encountered them assumed something had gone wrong with their instruments. The surrounding soil is pale clay, nutritionally empty. The kind of ground that exhausts itself after a single growing season. These patches were different. They were rich in carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and calcium. They held moisture in a climate designed to drain it. They supported plant life at densities the surrounding soil couldn't approach, and they had been doing so without any external input for somewhere between 500 and 2,500 years. Scientists eventually gave them a name, Terra Preta, dark earth. What the indigenous people of the Amazon left behind, whether by design or by the slow accumulation of generations, was not complicated in its effect. They didn't fight the soil. They added char, partially burned organic material, ash, organic waste. They layered it onto the surface and let the living system underneath incorporate it gradually. The way a forest floor incorporates a fallen tree. The char didn't feed the plants directly. It fed the microbes. It created a stable carbon structure that the soil food web could colonize, multiply within, and anchor itself to permanently. The microbial communities multiplied. The living system rebuilt itself, and then kept going, century after century, without interruption. Modern science has a name for what they created, biochar, and the research confirms what those people understood intuitively. That stable carbon structure increases microbial diversity, improves water retention, and sequesters nutrients in a form that doesn't leach away with the next rainfall. They weren't fertilizing the soil. They were rebuilding the system that makes fertility possible. And here is the quiet truth behind it all. The minerals those ancient Amazon farmers were working with, the carbon, the nitrogen, the phosphorus locked in their char and ash and organic waste, were no different from the minerals already present in every garden bed that exists today. Sand holds them, silt holds them, clay holds them. The nutrients were never missing. The miners were. Restore the miners, restore the loop, and the soil does the rest. That is what the three fixes do, not add fertility. Unlock it. That is not a metaphor. The Amazon patches are still there, still producing, still alive, after 2,000 years without a single external input. The system works. It has always worked. The only question that remains is what you do with your particular patch of ground. And unlocking it doesn't require starting over. The minerals are already there. The system just needs three things to come back online. The first is the hardest, because it asks you to stop doing something that feels like care. Stop disturbing the surface. Every day, the soil sits undisturbed. The fungal networks begin threading back through the darkness. Slowly, at first, then faster. Lay cardboard directly onto the bed. Cover it with 10 to 15 centimeters of mature compost. Not to fertilize, not to smother weeds, to do what a forest floor has always done. Feed the system from above, protect the living network below. Studies from the Rodale Institute show no-dig beds accumulate 28% more organic matter over 5 years than tilled plots. The softness returns, the structure returns, the water follows. The common mistake here is reaching for bagged potting mix instead of mature compost. Potting mix carries nutrients. It does not carry biology. What the soil needs right now isn't food, it's workers. Finished mature compost, dark, crumbly, smelling of forest floor, carries both. One caution: before you apply any compost you didn't make yourself. Municipal compost can carry herbicide residues that stunt growth with no visible warning. Press a few cress seeds into a small amount before using it. If more than 80% germinate within 5 days, it's clean. The second fix targets the biology directly. Drench the bed with fermented rice water. 3 to 5 days old, not fresh. That faint sour smell is the signal it's ready. Dilute 1 part to 10 parts water before it touches the soil. What you're pouring in isn't fertilizer, it's a microbial bloom. Billions of lactic acid bacteria that wake up the dormant workforce already living in the ground. Within a week, the population around the root zone can triple. The common mistake is pouring it fresh. Fresh rice water does almost nothing. The fermentation is where the biology lives. Skip it and you'll try this once, see no result, and never try it again. The third works fastest of all. Blackstrap molasses. Not regular molasses, Blackstrap. The dark, bitter concentrate from the final boiling of sugarcane. 30 milliliters dissolved in 3.8 liters of water, drenched directly into the soil, increases microbial activity by over 100% within a single week. It doesn't feed the plant. It wakes the workforce up. The common mistake is using it alone and expecting it to last. Molasses gives the biology a surge of energy to multiply. But without mature compost already in the soil, without workers to wake up, it's ringing a dinner bell in an empty room. Use it alongside the compost and the fermented rice water, and the acceleration is dramatic. 3 fixes. 1 biological logic. Stop breaking the system. Reintroduce the workers. Give them something to wake up to. The soil remembers what to do next. And the soil, given that much, will surprise you. Not immediately. Not in the dramatic way that a bag of fertilizer produces a sudden flush of green that fades 3 weeks later, but slowly, in the way that living systems actually recover. Building something that compounds rather than depletes. The first sign is usually the texture. A bed that was hard and pale in spring becomes darker by midsummer. Not from anything added that week. From the glomalin accumulating beneath the surface, binding particles together, creating the structure that holds water and circulates air. Then the earthworms return. Then the roots deepen. Then the fruit comes in heavier, with more color, more flavor, more of the minerals that healthy soil transfers into everything it grows. This is what previous generations understood without a microscope to confirm it, that the most productive ground is not the most worked ground. That soil trusted to organize itself, fed from above, protected from below, produces more than soil that is constantly corrected. What you now understand is what most gardening advice quietly skips over. The plant was never the problem. The system beneath it was broken. And that same system, given the right conditions, knows exactly how to rebuild itself. 3 actions. 1 biological truth, the oldest farming logic on earth. And here is what most people never consider after understanding all of this. The same system that was quietly dismantled in the soil, the loop that broke without anyone noticing, is running inside every plant that grows in it, in every vegetable pulled from that ground, in every meal made from it. Which means the question that follows isn't just about the garden. It's about what the garden has been quietly doing to the food, and what the food has been quietly doing to the people eating it. That is the next video. But before you get there, think of one person in your life who has always felt that something is wrong with the way modern food is grown, who questions things, who reads past the surface, who has never been satisfied with the standard answer. Send this video to that person, not because it has all the answers, because it asks the right questions. And people who ask the right questions deserve to find each other.